Jackrabbit. For some, this name brings back fond memories of a simpler time, endless hours spent in front of an old DOS computer, running through levels and gunning evil turtles. It had the platforming of Mario and the speed of Sonic. Mix that with a bit of run and gun from Contra and you have yourself a hit game. And a hit game was what our young Brucey and Cliff Bleszinski had on their hands. The main minds behind the Jackrabbit series began working on this game when they were just starting out. The first game, released in 1994, became a sensational hit all around the world as shareware copies led to purchases and purchases led to a sequel. Making a shareware version of a game was a very popular practice back in the early 80s to late 90s. Developers would make demos of their games that friends could share between themselves or on the internet. The demo would contain a menu where a player can learn how to contact the developers and purchase a full version of the game. Jackrabbit was a very lucky game. The moons had aligned perfectly for its success. The war between Nintendo and Sega was a media sensation as many developers tried to get some of that popularity by creating their own platforming games. The reason for Jazz's success was because of supply and demand. All they had to do was make a charismatic character, put them in a platformer and release it on the DOS computer, and watch as Jackrabbit became a household name. The developers Arjan Brucey and Cliff Bleszinski worked from home, Arjan in Netherlands and Cliff in his mom's house, stationed in California. Their main source of inspiration was the Amiga game Zool. The original Jazz game was developed and published under the name of Epic Mega Games for the MS-DOS in May 3 of 1994. Several expansion packs were released for this game, some even holiday-themed. In 1995, the magazine PC Format named Jackrabbit the Arcade Game of the Year. Jackrabbit 2 was released in 1998. It was a vast improvement to the original game, tackling and eliminating every problem and gripe players had with the first game. Even with all the hard work and dedication, it sold poorly and only got one main expansion pack before being labeled as abandonware. Jackrabbit 2 sold poorly due to lack of advertising and hype. Originally, Jackrabbit 2 went for $29.99 depending on where you purchased it from. This great sequel to the first game, released in the year 1998, it followed Jackrabbit along with his brother Spaz trying to get back Jazz's wedding ring from the evil turtle Devon Shell. Even with the improvement in graphics, music and gameplay, it went over the radar of many potential players due to the aforementioned little to no advertisement. The game surprisingly spawned a cult following, with websites like jazz2online.com still up and active. Jackrabbit 2's lead artist Nick Stadler held 2 interviews. One was in 1998 where he was stated as saying, "Sonic really turned me onto the whole potential of video game development, since he was really the first video game hero who had some personality in his animation." And then much later in 2010 where he was stated as saying, "The games are fun as hell, and Cliff and Arjan's work in making the game is pleasurably addictive, as well as Robert Talon and Alexander Brandon's painfully catchy music, was always enough to keep us all coming back to it again and again while we were in development hell." The late 90s brought about many trends. When Nintendo transitioned from 2D to 3D with Mario 64, many game developers felt pressure to do the same, or risk a drop in their sales. Jackrabbit was one of these games that attempted the jump to 3D but sadly missed and fell. Much in the same way as Jackrabbit 2, the game had very little advertisement. This could have been because the game was too early in development, but if it had released in this state, it would have probably met the same fate as its predecessor. The game had a beta version leaked. When fans got a hold of it, they felt sad because the game was great, yet it never released. It played well, the music was as great as always, and the visuals were nice and crisp. During the 2010 interview with Nick Stadler, he was asked if he was given the chance to create Jackrabbit 3 now, what would he do? He replied, "I would love to work with Cliff and Aryan again. They're genuinely two of the most awesome people I've ever worked with. I would love to return to all those wonderful characters again. They were a part of me for a long time, and I still feel a real connection to them. However, I don't really see where we could go with such a project. We're all in deeply different places now, professionally and creatively. It's a moment in time that likely could never be recaptured." Jackrabbit Advance was released in 2002. It met the same fate as Jackrabbit 2. The game's bland look and feel combined with the lack of promotion made this the most forgettable entry in the Jackrabbit series. A black sheep, that's one way to describe Jackrabbit Advance. Bland, that's another way to describe Jackrabbit Advance. The fun run and gun gameplay? Gone. The great and memorable music? Gone. This game simply showed up unannounced and disappeared into obscurity. Even the developers have forgotten about this game. None of the staff behind this game have spoken about it. The rare interview here and there doesn't even mention this game. It was forgotten, and it's best that way.